may well be a valid one. And I can tell you that many, many people around the world today have a sense of an awakening memory. There is a sense that the pyramids of Egypt are operating like a beacon, drawing people towards them. And imagine this. Imagine if you were the survivors, as I spoke before, of a lost civilization with a high wisdom and knowledge, a knowledge that we do not have today, and you believed in reincarnation, and not just believed, you knew that it happened, and you knew that you would be reborn 12,000 or more years in the future, and that you knew that part of the deal with reincarnation is that you do not remember past lives, that at the most you get these faint, haunting recollections that you do not clearly remember. Perhaps you would create an alarm clock for yourself. Perhaps you would create a beacon that would draw you towards it, and an alarm clock, a symbolic alarm clock that would awaken those repressed memories of past lives. And therefore I don't think it's necessarily to be scoffed at or entirely an accident that the great pyramids of Egypt have this effect on so many people, that they awaken their memories to past lives, and perhaps a whole generation is coming back and being awoken.
That's a fascinating concept, that they are in effect an alarm clock.
Yes, an alarm clock for the planet, to wake up a generation that passed away more than 12,000 years ago and that has come back. Everything about the ancient Egyptian texts speaks of the recreation of a former world.
So that we might remember we were here. East of the Rockies, you're on the air with Graham Hancock. Hi.
Yes, hello, gentlemen. This is Steve from South Dakota.
Yes, sir.
Hi.
A very sobering and, wonderful show, Art.
Thank you.
And it's a great privilege to speak to you, Mr. Hancock.
Thank you.
If there were more humans on this earth who had the sensitivity to our world like Mr. Hancock, I really believe that we'd have a better world. I have two questions. Number one, I just purchased a tape recently called The Mystery of the Sphinx. It was an NBC special hosted by Charles Manson. Yeah, John Anthony West?
That's about John Anthony West's wonderful work on the Sphinx. And John West is an individual to whom we should all pay credit, because John was a lone voice crying in the wilderness for 20 years about the implications of the geological weathering patterns on the Sphinx. And John single-handedly managed to mobilize the effort and the energy that got that geological study done, which proved that the Sphinx couldn't possibly have been built in 2500 BC, that the erosion patterns alone demonstrate absolutely objectively that it's thousands of years older than that. And yes, so that's the mystery of the Sphinx, and it was first shown in 1993.
Mm-hmm. It reinforced the idea that behind the Egyptian sacred science was a complex understanding of number systems and geometry.
Indeed.
And I've been musing over the past year or so about the possibilities of a proportional symbolic relationship between the face on Mars.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I must ask you both to hold on. We'll be right back. Graham Hancock is my guest, on his game for sure. Good morning, everybody. From the high desert to the nation and beyond, you're listening to the American CBC Radio Network. To my guest, Graham Hancock, and our caller. Caller, you're back on the air again. I think you are. No, wait a minute. As soon as I press a button, you are. Let me try this. Now I think you're back on the air again.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Anyway, my first question was that I was wondering about the proportional and symbolic relationships between the face on Mars and the Sphinx in Giza, and I wanted to know if you had any, if you would reflect any ideas on what you think about it.
Let me tell you, I'm in regular contact with Richard Hoagland. He's a fellow researcher and has become a friend over the last couple of years, and I'm a great admirer of Richard's work. I think that Richard Hoagland has done incredibly important and courageous work against an enormous amount of opposition in drawing attention to these extraordinary anomalies on the surface of Mars, and to certain anomalies on the moon, and to anomalies concerning our exploration of those worlds. And by FedEx this morning, I received an amazing package of material from Richard Hoagland concerning star alignments over the key landing sites on the moon, and at the time of the orbital mission to Mars. I think it would be. I can highly recommend. I'm not going to reveal what these computer printouts show me, because this is Richard Hoagland's work and it's his research, and I think that Richard himself should talk about this. But what I can tell you is that it suggests a stunning series of links, not only in terms of the physical appearance of. That it suggests a stunning series of links, not only in terms of the physical appearance of the monuments, but also in terms of astronomical alignments, and in terms of the very secretive exploration of these worlds by our organizations here in the United States, by our scientists. A stunning series of alignments and connections have been shown to me in these computer printouts that Richard Hoagland has prepared. I am more and more convinced that there is something very, very peculiar going on, and that there is indeed a terrestrial connection, as Richard puts it, with these anomalous structures on Mars. The material that I'm looking at is quite stunning, and I hope that you'll have Richard on to talk about this at this point.
Of course, he wanted me to have you on, almost demanded it, and it's well that I did. And I should tell you, since I had you on last, I had Professor Stanley McDaniel on, and the professor revealed new studies which are showing that in some cases the odds of the structures on Mars being anything but, in other words, being some sort of normal formation, the odds against that are literally now millions.
Yes.
Millions.
Well, I would agree with him. And looking at the star maps that are presently in front of me concerning the locations of those structures and concerning the landing sites for the moon missions as well, I think that we're looking at something quite extraordinary here, and I think it's very, very urgent that this work be taken further. Everything suggests to me that there is a connection between the structures on Mars and the structures at Giza in Egypt, and that this connection is deep and mysterious, and that there are people today in America, the powers that be, who have financed the space exploration and who have kept large aspects of this secret from the public, who are aware of this.
West of the Rockies, you're on the air with Graham Hancock. Hi.
Hello, this is Ken in Cerritos, California?
Yes, sir.
Oh, wonderful to get through. Hi. I'd like to compliment Graham on the wonderful way he puts his books together. It's very well read and easy to read.
Thank you.
I had a multiple question on the shafts in the Great Pyramid.
Yes.
A couple things bothered me. I was wondering why the shafts were aligned on different stars when the shafts conclude at their bases and angle off. Thereby you can't see up the shafts. And I was wondering if these shafts were continued on their normal course, would they possibly align on any chambers that we are unaware of in the Great Pyramid? And I had one more question.
All right, well, hold that one. Let's tackle that one. It is interesting.
Let's tackle that one first. The shafts were never intended as sighting instruments on stars. The two shafts from the upper chamber, which cut all the way through the body of the monument and exit on the outside of the monument, the southern shaft of the upper chamber, targeted the lowest of the three stars of Orion's belt in 2500 BC. But it was never intended as a sighting instrument by which that star could be seen. As a matter of fact, the shaft first goes in horizontally for about 8 feet before rising at the 45-degree angle that targets it like the barrel of a gun on that star. So what is intended here is a symbolic connection with the star, not any kind of sighting instrument. And secondly, in terms of hidden chambers, the most inviting shafts are the northern and southern shafts of the lower chamber, which Egyptologists on no good basis like to call the Queen's Chamber.
Right.
The northern and southern shafts of that chamber, neither of them exit on the outside of the monument. The northern shaft was partially explored in 1993 until the robot came to a curve in the shaft around which it could not be negotiated. Doesn't mean it can't be explored, but it requires further work on modifying the robot to take it round the corner.
Might there be a possibility that these shafts might be pointing to something downward rather than just upward?
Yeah, I think you're raising a very good point. My impression of all of these features of the Great Pyramid is that they were deliberately designed to stimulate inquiry and to raise questions of exactly the kind that you're asking.